Thank you to everyone that's joining us and sharing your time with us today. Really pleased to have you here. So this is our second webinar. You can find our other webinars, or other webinar, I should say, on our YouTube channel. Today's webinar is going to be exploring the idea of how can we best support well-being in our virtual teams. And so I'm really pleased today that we're joined with Gaynor Parkin. So Gaynor is a international expert in helping organizations understand and support the well-being of their employees. And so over 10 years ago, she founded a company called Umbrella, which she will tell you a little bit more about. But Deeper Signals, since 2018, have had the pleasure of partnering with Umbrella to build some really cool tools that leverage technology and data to not only raise self-awareness, but to help people kind of have a personalized development or approach to improving their own well-being, but also help organizations get the insight about their people so they can really lead compassionately and create a supportive culture. We'll be talking a little bit more about how we've worked together later on in today, but let's just share a few points around the things we're going to cover today. So we're going to start off just really exploring how the pandemic is really impacting not only how we're working, but also our well-being. We'll then take a brief journey from, how do we actually support well-being in the organization? So how do we go from data to action? And then we'll be sharing 5 really practical ways that you can start to support the well-being within your team. Before I pass it over to Gaynor, we're just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. If I can ask you all to keep your microphone muted. This is just so we're not disruptive and everyone can be heard. If you do have any questions, please just use the little chat option that is in the top right of your screen. If you have any questions, thoughts or reactions that you'd like to share with everyone, please put it there. And someone from the Deeper Signals team will be kind of monitoring that. Will be, I will then put those to Gaynor, and we'll also have a brief discussion at the very end of our session. So please share your thoughts and we will definitely get to them. So with all that said, Gaynor, over to you.
Thanks so much, Rhys, and it's a real pleasure to be with you today. I'm very fortunate to be talking to you from New Zealand, where we have hit 0 cases with COVID, so feeling incredibly grateful this morning. Just really briefly to let you know about Umbrella, we're a team of clinical psychologists, and what we like to do is to support people in organisations, and to do that we look to the best practice scientific research on well-being. As Rhys said, it's really important to us that we're using data to inform any interventions that we're recommending or supporting, and we're very pleased to be partnering with Deeper Signals on that in the US and globally now. My personal circumstances are I've been in lockdown with my twin boys who are 18 years old. They just left home a few weeks before the lockdown and then had to return. So that's been a bit of a challenge. So I'm talking to you today as CEO of Umbrella, as a psychologist, and also as a mum of teenage boys. So let's think about well-being. What we know about the current situation for everyone around the world is that this pandemic is a particularly difficult trigger for stress, for uncertainty, and for impacting our well-being. Why is that? What we know from the science is that any situations that are truly ambiguous, that are novel and new, that we don't have experience to fall back on, and that are unpredictable, are generally difficult for most of us. Most of us don't like it when things are uncertain and we don't know how they're going to pan out. So this current situation is ticking all their boxes. And I'm pretty sure if we did a round and asked you how people in your team are going at the moment, I expect that most people would be saying this is tricky for these reasons. So hoping that this sounds pretty familiar right now. What do we know about the impact of that uncertainty on our well-being? Certainly, we're hearing from teams around the world that people are experiencing high levels of stress, feeling a bit more muddled and confused, noticing that their cognitive function isn't as good as it normally is. So perhaps they're finding it harder to plan or harder to manage complex pieces of work. Certainly, people are telling us that there's more worry, more anxiety. People are worried about what's coming next and what does the future hold. Some of those unwelcome surprises, particularly I think in the US at the moment. And I think everyone's finding it difficult to manage as we transition through the various phases of COVID. We don't really quite know what's coming next. I think even for those of us who lean towards high optimism, it's particularly difficult to hold optimism at the moment. And that's important because we know that holding optimism is protective for our well-being. And I think certainly any of you who are in a leadership role, you're probably noticing those in your team have a bit less of a buffer at the moment, a bit less tolerant of things they'd usually be a bit more patient about. So you might be noticing a bit more irritability, a bit less of a bandwidth when it comes to being flexible and agile. And we know from some of the research that's just starting to be done currently that most people are saying they're more fatigued, and that's probably a consequence of changes to our lifestyle, and also that we're all spending a lot more time on screens. So generally, it's a bit of a negative impact. Thinking then about what we do about this. At Umbrella, as Rhys has said, and for Deeper Signals, it's really important that we inform our recommendations with data. And we think the starting point is this purpose piece. So if you think about your particular organisation, the particular teams that you lead, what's your purpose in leading your people? Do you want to be an amazing place to work? Do you want to be an organisation that's known for supporting the well-being of your people? What's your end goal? Certainly at Umbrella, we really advocate that we want to send people away from working with Umbrella with better well-being than they came in. That's a bit of an aspirational goal for us. That, of course, means that we need to know our people really well, doesn't it? And hopefully, if I asked you to go around and talk to me about who's in your team, pretty sure that you'd say you know your people well. Sometimes, though, we don't know so well, or we're not quite sure, and that's where data is really helpful. And Rhys is going to mention in a minute a short wellbeing check-in that we've developed with Deeper Signals, which is one way to get some accurate data on how people are managing at the moment. Once we have good data, then we can strategize and plan about how to make that wellbeing information, how to act on that and how to make it better, and to take action. What is it that I might need to do? And we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Really important as well to do the reviewing. So we've got a purpose. We think we know our people. We collect some data and make a strategy, put some interventions and actions in place. Then it's really important that we review to check we're on track, go through the circle again. So thinking about practical tools, what is it that I can do as a leader to support my people right now? What is it that I can do myself? One of the things we know is to check in on, for ourselves and for others, where people are putting their focus at the moment. Some of you might be really familiar with this model. This is Stephen Covey's model. It's really important that we look at keeping our attention and our energy and our focus in the sphere of what we can control and a little bit in the area of what we can influence. We definitely want to make sure that people are staying out of that circle of concern where we have no control over it. So it's really important to validate that people might be worried about the global situation or what's happening politically on a day-to-day basis. Where is their circle of control? Where is their circle of influence? So that might be saying, how do we make sure that today, this week, is the best that it can be given the situation that we're in? And of course, it's really easy to say this and way harder to put it into practice. So in our experience, checking in with people regularly, at the start of the day, maybe partway through before the end. It's a really important strategy for checking where people are. Something else that I'm sure that you all know is we want to increase our levels of compassion at the moment, both towards ourselves and also towards others. Something that we hear really repeatedly from teams is that people want to be trusted to manage their work hours and to work flexibly at the moment. Most people will say, please don't micromanage me. Trust me to go away and do a really great job and support me in that. We talked a little bit about the validating emotions, and I think for myself, that's probably, if you go away with one thing from this webinar, I'd hope you remember. Validating emotions is really giving people permission to feel how they are in any given moment. So validating emotions means it's okay to be sad. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel overwhelmed on a regular basis. It's letting people know that we feel like that too, and that's okay. And something else that we've had consistent feedback from people at the moment around the world is we need more praise and recognition at the moment. Because things are a bit hard and uncertain, that recognition and reward piece is really important. And again, we need to tailor it, adapt it to the people that we're with. So some people love the public shout out. They love the email or the video call to say, hey, Reese, well done. You did an amazing job today. Some people will love that. Other people prefer the quieter personal call to do that. So it's giving feedback and praise in a way that's meaningful to people. And that engagement piece is really important as well. What motivates us? What gives us a sense of satisfaction and achievement at the end of the day? How do we help people play to strengths? And can we swap tasks around in an organisational or a team environment so that people are better matched to their strengths? So having some conversations around that may be really important.
Gaynor,
I'm just going to pause, in case there's questions.
Yeah, just this one question. So this is a good one. It's how do you deal with that feeling, people have it so much worse than I do, which can, invalidate some of the fear and grief that some of us may be feeling in different ways?
Yeah, that's a super great question. There's a fantastic psychological model called ACT, A-C-T, you might want to look up. What that model tells us is that we want to use the and. So, for example, for me in New Zealand at the moment, I do have high gratitude, but it's also okay for me to moan and complain. So I might want to sometimes say, hey, my day's been really crazy. I'm too busy. I'm hating this. It's really horrible. And I'm really grateful that I'm here. So I think for those of you that are in places in the world that are more impacted, it's really important to validate your own experience of sadness, of frustration, of grief, and maybe of wanting to stamp your feet sometimes. And it's really important we do that alongside the gratitude and the looking for the good. So that ACT model would tell us to try and hold both of those, and also to be doing that for other people. So to be trying to validate their experience. If they say, I'm really overwhelmed by what I'm doing, and you're like, seriously, you should see my workload. But it's really important that we validate it for them, even though we're holding the and, which is really, you've got a good deal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, thanks. It's a really great question. Something else we know from psychological science, some of you might follow the work of Barbara Fredrickson already. If you don't, look her up. She's an amazing researcher who has demonstrated that one of the most protective things we can do when life is tough, and a really good way to boost our well-being, is to do things every day to try and increase the number of positive emotions that we experience in a day. And in particular, experiencing positive emotions helps to reduce our level of fatigue. When we're thinking positive emotions, we're thinking of joy, gratitude, hope, feeling connected to other people, sense of achievement, sense of satisfaction, maybe a sense of awe sometimes. So how do we get more of those emotions into our day? And this can be a really good conversation to have with people that you're connecting with and working with. So what are all the ways we might celebrate successes and effort? How do we celebrate the really small wins, and noticing the things that may be shifting really slowly? We can visualize something positive to change our mental state. So maybe for me, being in the mountains in the snow is really uplifting. So I might want to have a mental image of skiing down a pristine slope. For some of you, it might be imagining sitting in the park, or being with people that you love to be with, you can't be with right now. And another way we might do that is trying to create some fun in our day. So what is it that we can do that's going to give us a real sense of joy? And one of the things I like to do with my team as well is at the end of the day to check in on everyone's small wins. Say, let's do a round of what's gone well, or something you feel you've achieved today. So that can be another way of doing it. We also know that a really important strategy for protecting wellbeing at the moment is to make sure we're getting plenty of oscillation, and to be encouraging those of us that are working in teams to get some team oscillation as well. I'm sure you'll all be familiar with the Yerkes-Dodson stress curve, which says being under stress is great if it's short-lived, if it's short, sharp boosts, but if it goes on for too long, we get fatigued. How do we get some of that oscillation? Changing the type of task that we're doing in the day. So if we've been on screens all day doing some brainstorming on a piece of paper, perhaps doing something quietly by ourselves if we've been interacting with lots of people. And again, sharing ideas around our team about how do we mix up tasks. The other way we would get oscillation is to do some physical recovery. So to be doing something that's physically active, or perhaps doing a relaxation or a mindfulness exercise. And as we were just mentioning, building in moments in our day where we also experience positive emotion gives us that recovery. So think of recovery as mental, physical, and emotional time out from the challenge. I'm just going to pause there, Reese, in case there's any more questions. No. Okay, move on.
There is. I think Reese is on mute.
Oh,
my mistake, but I'm there. There you go, Reese.
Yep, sorry about that. So do we know whether a leader's style and personality impacts the resilience of their team?
Yes. Yes is the short answer. Yeah. The longer answer is, and we've got people listening into this webinar who are more experts on leadership than I am, but generally we know that it's really important to match the style of our team. So for example, I manage a team that's pretty extroverted, so they get recovery by interacting with one another. Personally, I get recovery by being quietly by myself, so I have to adapt my style to meet the needs of the team. Would anyone else jump in with another view there? I know we've got people here who...
Maybe we can
we'll carry on, talk at the end, yeah. So just thinking again about some examples of that rest and recovery, and yeah, absolutely adapting it to people's personality styles. Thinking again about that physical, mental, emotional recovery. Something else we also know that's always important for wellbeing, but probably particularly important when we're living through a pandemic, is to schedule recovery. And many people will tell us that this sounds easy, but is hard. One of the tips we give to teams and to leaders is to say, before you schedule anything else into your calendar for the day or the week, schedule the recovery time first. So think about what works best for you in terms of oscillation. Schedule recovery first, and then make the work tasks fit around it. When we're thinking about recovery, there's 3 R's that are really important. Rest time, downtime, where we're not doing anything. So that might mean a nap. It might mean meditation, exercise, or maybe just sitting outside in the sunshine for 5 minutes. Recreation is the fun stuff, spoken about being really important. And then core to this is relationship connection. So making time to connect with other people. When we're connecting with other people, then we get a bit of a boost of oxytocin, which is one of the neurochemicals that helps us to feel calm, gives us a sense of well-being. And we can get that when we're on a screen, so long as we're making eye contact. Rhys, I'm going to hand to you to just mention our Wellbeing check-in tool.
Yeah, thanks for going through those points, Gaynor. So what we would like you all to do is actually check in on your own well-being. So if you follow this link on the screen, you will actually be taken to a new tool that Deeper Signals has created with Gaynor and Umbrella. That is a really short, insightful tool that can help you get the key data points around the biggest areas that could be impacting your well-being. So insights from your personality, in particular your emotional resilience, to data around your potential workplace challenges, family challenges, and kind of other aspects of your physical and psychological health. What we do here is to really help you raise self-awareness and insight about kind of how you're currently doing. What are some of the behaviors that you're displaying that could be changed, adapted to kind of help you thrive? But then the point is also, if you was to use this with, say, your team or within your organization, is that organizations can really start to get the data points around how their people are actually doing and really start to lead compassionately. So it's touching on those points that Gaynor has mentioned. If you can, as a leader, if you see your people empirically are struggling, are feeling anxious, you can use this data to inform how you can become a much more compassionate leader. So how can you better validate and acknowledge those emotions? How can you have a personalized approach to your team members, given their different attitudes and personality traits that are going to be shaping and impacting the way that they are experiencing stress? And so again, we really would like you to go onto this link and complete this assessment. It only takes 5 minutes, and it'd be really good to kind of hear how the feedback resonates with you and how the tips and advice could help you really improve and enhance not only your own well-being, but also those of your team members and colleagues. Because I think we have a real potential here to use these insights to help others.
Thanks, Rhys. And so just pulling together what we've been talking about, and then we're happy to have some more Q&A. As Rhys has said, keeping our attention on the things that we can and can't control is really important, and potentially sharing that circle of control, circle of influence to start those conversations can be really useful. We've spoken about the importance of compassion for ourselves and for others, that kind of recognizing and validating someone's emotional experience. And there was that really great question of the importance of validating however we're feeling at the moment, alongside some gratitude. But it's okay to stamp our feet and say, this really sucks right now. We've talked a little bit more as well about how do we boost positive emotion? How do we generate more positive emotion into our day and support others to do the same? One thing I forgot to say before is Barbara Fredrickson's research has demonstrated it's the frequency of positive emotion that's protective for well-being rather than the intensity. So we don't need to have a great wave of gratitude or connection or hope. We just need a little bit, a nugget. She calls it a nugget of positive emotion. So having more in our day of small amounts is helpful. It doesn't need to be big. We've spoken about that oscillation curve. So how do we make sure for ourselves and for our team, we're getting oscillation between being in times of high challenge and also making sure we're getting recovery. And that includes mental, physical, and emotional recovery through a day, through a week. and the importance of scheduling that time for recreation, for rest, for connection with other people, and again helping people have mental, physical and emotional brief recovery during our day. So we'll pause for some more questions.
Yeah, thank you for that, Gaynor. I really like the idea of nuggets of positive emotion. I'm going to using that one more and more. So we've got some questions. And the first one is coming from Amar, who asked, what are the key employee data points that could best help organizations assess if their leader is compassionate and really helping their team members feel cared, involved and engaged?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's one of the questions in the pulse, and the question we use is, do you feel heard and understood by your team leader? So it's that validation piece again.
And another question is, how are we seeing well-being kind of needs and demands shift from, say, pre-corona to now during corona? Are things is it still the same well-being issues that people are experiencing, or have new ones emerged, others fallen away? How is that?
It's another great question. I think what we know from the data is there's some similar themes and some different ones. I think what we're noticing is corona has forced everyone to look at well-being with new appreciation. So what we're noticing is organisations who are already good at placing attention on well-being alongside performance and productivity, we're really glad we put that energy and effort into supporting well-being because it's paying dividends now. Organisations who said, we'd meant to get to that, but we haven't, are going, help. We've got people falling over, people who are really anxious, people who are burning out, and we need to pay attention to it more quickly. I think the coronavirus has heightened mental well-being as being particularly important. So people can manage being in various stages of lockdown, or people can manage not having so much connection with others as they normally would if their mental health is strong. But I think where people are struggling is if that kind of pillar of well-being, that mental health isn't so good, then it's really taking a toll. I guess the positive that may come out of this is that we will decide that well-being is more important and bump it up the priority pile. That would be my hope.
Very good. I think we've just got time maybe for one more question. What can leaders say to teams when they're actually feeling uncertain or anxious themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. This came up yesterday as well. I ran a leadership forum for exporters in New Zealand, and that question came up as well. What the research would tell us, my personal experience, is it's really important to be genuine. So I think it's okay for leaders, it's okay for us to say, I am personally feeling anxious or finding it difficult to stay calm right now. And there's the and again, and I want to support you to be as calm as you can and worry as less. So tell me what it is that's on your mind. How do we help you dial that worry down? And I think leaders openly practicing strategies to reduce their own worry is helpful in order to kind of walk the talk and model that for team members. But I think that genuineness is really important. We don't want to be trying to pretend.
Yeah, I think I really like that point. It's this idea of leading, compassionately, but also transparently, like accepting that as a leader, I'm also human. I'm also kind of going through this situation, and use that as a way to build empathy and connection with your team members.
Yeah, it's also way more validating. Hey, like if I'm having a not very great day, the last thing I probably want is my leader to say, "Oh, it's all fine."
Yeah, exactly right. You'd be questioning your leader if they're burying their head in the sand and pretending everything is fine and normal.
Okay. And I'm just going to jump in. I think that kind of goes back to the earlier question about leadership as well, where depending on the style of the leader may naturally be more expressive and open and sharing with their feelings, or they may be more reserved and stable and trying to keep a calm face. But it's kind of the responsibility of the leader to try to open that up a bit, right? Because otherwise the team will feel like this doesn't resonate and my feelings are not valid. And does the leader even understand what's going on in my life?
Yeah. I think another similar question too that I've been asked a lot is it important for leaders to be open about their support? And I think it truly is. So I think it's important as leaders that we can say, this is what I'm doing to stay calm and be okay at the moment. So maybe I'm having some coaching or some other form of professional support. And I think it's okay to be open about that, because again, it's validating and it's encouraging others to do the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us, Gaynor, and walking us through
Pleasure.
5 ways we can help support well-being in our teams. And to everyone else, thank you for tuning in. Again, really appreciate your time. We're going to be sharing a copy of this recording in about an hour's time. You'll all get it in your inbox, and within that, you'll have that link to try out that assessment for yourself. In the meantime, if there's any other questions you have for us, just shoot us an email at hello@deepersignals.com, and we'll get in touch.